Hello everybody, it is your local neighborhood Kaifu here with a Halloween special edition of my usual ASMR videos. Mwahahaha! As you can tell, my mic is different from usual because I thought it would be a nice change of pace instead of using my usual 3DO mic to have some nice in your ear podcast micy sounds. Cause this mic is meant to be used as a podcast mic. I might as well utilize it for that purpose, you know what I mean? So I hope you sit back and relax. You can fall asleep to this. You could try your best not to shit your pants. Either or, your choice. But without further ado, let's begin reading our stories. By the way, all of these stories today will be coming from r/no sleep, because why not? I thought Reddit was the best place to procure all these stories, so I hope they're good. I literally went on Google and I typed in what are the best r/no sleep stories on Reddit, and these were some of the ones I had procured. So I'm hoping they're good. I have not read them ahead of time, so I will be finding out as we go too. So let's enjoy these stories together, huh? Our first story comes from r/no sleep, of course, by user Poltergeist. I can read. The man in my basement takes one step closer every week. Oh my god, does this thing have multiple chapters? Okay, this thing might have multiple chapters, so I'm just gonna read the first chapter. And if you find it more intriguing, you can go ahead and peruse the Reddit. I will put all the links in my description below. Okay. The man in my basement takes one step closer every week.
Number 1. He will begin in the furthest corner of your basement. If you see him, do not overreact. He may decide to move on. Number 2. If the intruder decides to stay, he will take one step closer each week. Do not attempt to speak with him, hurt him, or get third parties involved. Number 4. Any violation of Rule 3,
which was the previous thing I had read. I forgot to say number 3.
Any violations of Rule 3 generally result in several quick steps forward, depending on severity of transgression. Number 5. Barricading the doors is acceptable. This will slow him down, but the process will be very loud, difficult to sleep. Number 6. To others, the intruder will appear as a mannequin, or a rubber dummy, or a coat hanger, etc. Do not let guests near him. Number 7. The intruder will not move so long as you have guests in the house. Guests who actually want to be there. Once, I had an old friend sleep on the couch for 3 months, and the intruder did not move a step. Number 8. You can leave the house, but never sleep anywhere else. Never make plans to move, even browsing for houses online, etc. The importance of this rule cannot be overstated. General notes. None of these rules are set in stone. The intruder seems to evolve and react depending on your actions. Personally, I recommend measuring the distance from him to the furthest corner of the house. Calculate how long it will take him to reach you. Set up your bedroom as far away as possible. Once established, do not move your bed. You must sleep there from now on. Please note that sometimes he will leave his station and wander up into the house. Do your best to ignore him. He will always return to the last place he left off.
I had to laugh as I read the typo-written list of stupid rules left on my doorstep, likely conjured up by some neighborhood kid with too much free time. Props for the creativity, though. Stepping back inside, I folded it up and tucked it away. Guess it was preferable to getting toilet papered. Slumping back into the living room couch, I resumed watching the game. I'd just moved into the neighborhood. Owning a house of my own had been a lifelong goal since I was 18. Now, after 15 years of working, saving, and taking on crippling debt, I finally have a place to call my own. Hooray! A killer deal on a modest 1982 story with a basement and a backyard swimming pool. The main floor was an open design, kitchen, living room, and an entrance hallway that led to the upstairs. Upstairs was a short alcove with 3 doors. master bedroom, guest room, and washroom. This house was the only thing in my lonely life I felt proud of. Something caught the corner of my eye. Across the living room, the front entranceway, this basement door was cracked open. A slit of pitch dark. Okay. I turned back to the TV. Probably forgot to close it earlier. Shaking it off, I focused on the game as much as I could, but the cracked open door lurked in my peripheral for a while. It almost felt like someone was watching me. Fuck. I got up from the couch, marched across the room, pulled the door shut, and marched back. Embarrassed, I flopped into the couch and swung my feet up on the coffee table. Maybe that stupid list of rules was getting to me after all. Maybe whoever wrote it wasn't done messing with me yet. I jumped at the pounding of my front door. Muting the TV, I begrudgingly got up, hauled over, and yanked open the door. A smiling man greeted me, barely 5 foot tall, round, and wearing a bright green Hawaiian t-shirt with matching cargo shorts, vaguely reminding me of the Batman's penguin.
So,
He said, a forced smile plastered to his face. Hello.
I'm so sorry to bother you.
He looked down at my shoes, studying.
Someone's been leaving notes on the doorstep out here, and since you're new,
He looked up, glanced back over his shoulder, then back at me.
I just wanted to warn you.
This guy had more nervous energy than a cold turkey drug addict. Warn me about what? The smile on his face turned grim.
The notes,
He said, pausing for effect.
there's,
He searched for words.
there's a mentally unstable young man in the neighborhood.
Okay.
His father.
He glanced back over his shoulder again.
His father lived in the house across the street from you.
An overgrown one-story box of a house. It almost looked abandoned.
When his father passed, the son
He looked back to me.
started writing notes, leaving them on doorsteps around the neighborhood.
I set my hand on the pocket where I tucked away the note.
The son, if you see him, he's harmless. And the notes, well, of course, they're nonsense.
He chuckled. I pulled the note out from my pocket. Yeah, I was wondering, I said, carefully unfolding the paper. The man's eyes filled with concern. Rule 1, I read aloud. He will...
Please.
He stammered. I raised an eyebrow.
I've seen enough of those for a while.
He rubbed his forehead with the back of his thumb.
They're harmless, but also kind of.
He looked around, again, searching for the words. Creepy? I said. His eyes lit up.
Yes, creepy. What a great word. Creepy.
He marveled, weirdly impressed. I almost laughed.
Anyways,
He continued.
I just wanted to let you know, don't worry about the notes, they're ridiculous, of course.
Of course.
Well, I best be,
For the third time, he searched for words. Leaving?
yeah,
He laughed, wagging a finger at me.
I must say you're really good with words.
He shook his head like I'd just pulled off a magic trick. I try, I said skeptically, though he seemed sincere.
Howie, by the way.
He shot out his hand for a handshake. I recoiled. The pandemic was still in full swing. This was written about the pandemic? What the hell?
Oh, of course.
He said, reading the room. He shook his head again.
Still not used to it.
It's all good. I'm Brandon, by the way.
Brandon.
He smiled again and turned away. I don't know what that line's making me laugh. I stood there in the doorway, watching him leave, dumbfounded by the strange, almost comical conversation. As he stepped onto the road, I stepped back into my house and went to pull the door shut. I stopped short. Something caught the corner of my eye. About 7 houses down sat a white hatchback car with tinted windows, idling. I can't say why it grabbed my attention, but it did. For some unknown reason, it felt out of place, sinister even. Shrugging, I stepped back inside and pulled the door shut behind me. I collapsed back into the couch. Fuck. My team was losing. It was dark out when the game finished. 3-1 against me, of course. I turned off the TV, stretched up my arms, pushed off the couch and froze. The basement door was open again. Open wide this time. A few long seconds crept by, till I finally stepped toward. I know I shut that door. I stopped at the top of the stairs. Below me, everything faded into uninviting darkness. I flicked on the light, and an orange glow stuttered to life. Beige cream walls and scratchy carpet. The stairs went down about 20 steps, then took a hard turn to the left. I had only been in the basement 3 times since moving. Nothing but unopened cardboard boxes down there. I pulled the door shut and went up to my room. Crawling into bed, I flickered off the light and closed my eyes. Maybe the door was broken. A bump in the night startled me awake. I checked the time, 2:58 a.m. Faint moonlight cast through the bedroom window. Stacks of unopened moving boxes crowded my room like cardboard metropolis. The night was silent. Still half asleep, I sat up onto the edge of my bed, staring at the closet door. A door that reminded me of my childhood home. A door that reminded me of an old friend. A sliding door with fake cherry wood vinyl covering it, and something downstairs moved. 7 quick thumps creaking across floorboard, clicking, almost like dog feet, holding heavier. I cursed under my breath, fully awake now. The reasonable part of my mind wondered if a raccoon snuck inside. The less reasonable part of my mind wondered if it was Satan himself. I stood up from the bed and marched over to a stack of boxes in the corner. No way I was going down there without a weapon. Sliding a box off the top of a precarious tower, I turned back and placed it on the bed, rifling through it until my hand grasped a familiar cold metal object. I pulled out a chrome-plated switchblade, the same one I had bought off my weed dealer back in high school. I flicked the knife in and out a couple of times. That'll do. Knife in my back pocket, I stepped towards the doorway, wrapped my grip around the smooth brass doorknob, and pushed it open. It was darker out here. No windows upstairs. I flicked on the light. Cold, waiting room glow cast over everything. At the bottom of the steps, the basement door was still closed. Thank God. I crept silently down the stairs, 1 step at a time. A faint smell hung in the air, almost like burnt hair and gasoline. Almost. Moonlight cast in through the living room window. Everything down there was so quiet and still. Too still. Like the world was on pause. I scanned the living room. Empty. I stepped onto the kitchen. Empty. Shaking my head, I pulled open the fridge. Old house makes strange sounds, I reminded myself, pouring a glass of milk. I took a swig and... The taste of foul rot filled my mouth. I spewed and spat back into the cup. What the hell? Rinsing out my mouth with tap water, I gurgled and spat until the bitter taste was gone. There was no way that expired already. I checked the date. 6 days till expiry. Weird. I set it down and wandered over to the living room window. Across the street, the neighbor's house was dark. I should have asked Howie if the note-leaving son still lived there. Based on what he said, it sounded like this kid needed professional help. Suddenly, a light snapped on across the street. Exterior, left side of the house. Motion detector, bluish glow revealed a cluttered and neglected backyard, even more unkempt in the front. Moths flapped in desperate circles over the unnatural light, and then it went dark. I turned back to head upstairs, but stopped. My eyes caught the basement door again, still closed, but something stirred within me this time.
morbid curiosity, perhaps, I trudged over and pulled open the door. I flicked on the light and stepped down. Scratchy carpet clawed at the soles of my socks. I reached the stairwell corner. More darkness. A 15-foot hallway with doors on either side led to an open rec room. I flicked the next light switch. Nothing, of course. I sat there for a good 10 minutes, staring into the dark, the strange pull of curiosity only getting stronger. Begrudgingly, I pulled out my phone, turned the light on, and moved forward, stepping over boxes and clutter as I went. The strange smell from upstairs was even stronger down here, like gasoline and burnt hair. Maybe there was a leak? I'd get that checked out tomorrow. Regardless, I pushed forward and stepped into the garage-sized rec room, cold concrete against my feet. I scanned the phone light from left to right until I froze. Stood in the back right corner was a coat rack post. For a second, it almost looked like a person. I don't own any coat racks. Someone put it there. I felt sick, angry. Someone broke into my house and put a coat rack in my basement corner. Indignant, I marched off, yanked it off the ground, and stormed back upstairs. God fucking damn it. What are you doing? What are you doing, bro? They told you not to mess with the coat rack. Okay, sorry. I knew exactly who did it too. The same person who left the note had to be. That was disturbing enough in its own right. Supernatural bullshit or whatnot. Of course, back then, the possibility of the note being sincere never crossed my mind. I didn't even consider the chance that something unknown and terrible was about to enter my life and never leave. At this point, I was convinced that a malicious trickster was trying to break my sanity. I'm not the most stable of individuals, but it'd take more than a coat rack and a creepy note to do that. A lot more. I snapped the coat rack in half, tossed it to the garbage, and sat up in the living room till morning. That week, I installed new security and locks. If anything else happened, I'd get the police involved. Stupid rules be damned. Either way, I've been through worse. In hindsight, dismissing the note might be the biggest regret of my entire life. End of part 1.
Oh, how's your boogie? Oogie, spooky, oogie, baba can.
Oh my goodness, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't read Roman numerals. I think that's 14. There's 14 chapters. Okay, well, if you enjoyed this video and want me to do more of this type of content, even despite the fact it's not Halloween anymore, let me know and I'll continue reading each of the parts. Otherwise, feel free to indulge on the other parts yourself. Next one. Alrighty, our next story, I believe it's only 1 chapter long, is by Grand Theft Auto. It is called Maria on the Moon. Maria on the Moon. Okay. Did you know that early astronomers thought there were oceans on the moon? I asked, looking up from my book. My mom shifted in her bed, a tangle of IV tubes drifting with her. Of course. The moon seemed like the perfect place to find an ocean. Shame we never found water there then, I said. Because those false seas, astronomers called them Maria. Mom smiled. How sweet of them to name the moon oceans after me. Well, they didn't find any oceans, I reminded her. Maybe they didn't look hard enough, she replied, a little laugh slipping from her lips. From all the pain she was in, all the fear she must feel, my mother always had the kind of laugh that could light a candle. We were in her hospital room, the same one we'd been in and out of the last year and a half. Sometimes we had a roommate, sometimes we were alone. Always she held steady enough for both of us. The rock I tied my hope to, the wall against the grief I knew was coming. Cancer is such a mundane word for something so hungry and cruel. I've noticed medicine does that a lot. Covers horror with tedious language like a bedsheet over a body. Malignant, inoperable, metastasize. I don't know how to read that word. Terminal. But when she left, When she left, we weren't in the hospital anymore. We were home. When she left, she wasn't sick. She was young again. And I was a kid, and the world was a bright place begging to be explored. What a miracle my mother was. Cancer had taken so much from her. Age didn't hurt her, but it never could steal her laugh. That was hers to keep.
How are you feeling today?
The doctor asked. He came in less and less often. We could all sense this was the final stay in this room.
God, this is sad. Are we sure this is a horror story? This is so sad.
Just brilliant, Doc, my mom said, struggling to sit a little higher.
We can still go dancing later if you'd like, though we'll have to ask for my son's blessing. Ever since his dad died, Brian's been very protective of me.
I put on a stern face. I'll need to know your intentions are pure, Dr. Bradshaw.
As the driven snow.
He played along.
But I might need a rain check on the dance, Miss Willen. I'm not as young as I used to be.
He emphasized his age, running his fingers through his gray-white hair.
A gift? A drift?
Sorry. My mom tapped her bare scalp.
Right there with you, Tiger, she said. What the hell are you making me read, Reddit?
Dr. Bradshaw smiled, but I could tell he was burdened. I saw him glance at the small idol I'd placed on my mother's nightstand. The talisman was a miniature oak tree, carved from a gray soapstone. There were 4 faces etched into the tree, a sentry against ill health and bitter spirits. I could tell the stone tree made the doctor uncomfortable. In all honesty, I had a tough time looking at the idol for more than a few seconds. The faces were each whittled with vivid expression. The face closest to my mother's bed was smiling kindly, and the face pointed towards the door was snarling, meant to ward away harm. The final 2 faces were both weeping. All 4 shapes were too human, too raw. There was a weirdness to the stone tree that put people on edge, but I'd grown used to every shade of weird you can imagine. My mother's side of the family was full of stories of unexplained luck and mysterious tragedy, whispered secrets and unexplained deaths. By all accounts, my maternal grandmother was either an honest-to-goodness witch or full-bore, high-caliber crazy, or both. Probably both. The stone tree was from a box of my grandmother's things I'd found in the attic earlier that month. Maybe it was just a coincidence, but my mother did seem to get a bit better when I brought in the talisman, at least for a little while. I was daydreaming about family history in the odd box while Dr. Bradshaw checked his charts and my mom's vitals.
Can I talk to you for a moment?
He asked, ripping me back to reality. Dr. Bradshaw tried to keep a light tone, but I could tell he didn't have good news. The hospital hallway smelled like ammonia and birthday cake. Someone must have had a party. Maybe a patient, maybe a nurse. Strange how you remember the insignificant details while your world is crashing down around you.
I'm so sorry,
Dr. Bradshaw told me.
The results came in this morning. It's spreading aggressively. We held it back as long as we could, Brian. Your mom is a fighter. But right now, we just need to try to keep her as comfortable as we can. Brian?
The wall was crackling. Grief waiting on the other side, heavy and cold as an empty house. I'd known for months that this was the most likely outcome, but it still hurts to hear. Hurt worse than I could stomach. There's nothing left to try? I asked, fighting down the urge to throw up. Anything, experimental, untested, anything? Dr. Bradshaw shook his head.
I'm sorry. Sometimes we just run out of options. She fought a good fight.
How long did she have left? I asked, looking back to her room. She'd fallen asleep.
Not long. Maybe days. Have you considered a hospice?
The smell of ammonia and birthday cake. The steady beep of my mom's heart monitor. I tried to focus on the world around me. My hope wasn't dead yet. If medicine couldn't help my mom, maybe something older could. I thought of the box of my grandmother's things waiting in the attic. There was a lot of things there I hadn't gone through yet. Books and candles and secrets and lost things. Maybe there was a cure, at least a way to keep the fight going. No, I said. If all that's left is to make her comfortable,
I want to take her home.
The doctor smiled.
I understand. We can give you some medications. Ways to help her with the pain.
He put his hand on my shoulder.
Your mom's been in a lot of pain, but she'll have peace soon. You've done all you can.
I know. I lied. Thank you.
God, this is grim. When does the scary part start? I don't want this setup anymore. It's too sad.
Mom lived in a small ranch house 10 miles outside of town. There wasn't much in the way of neighbors besides some woods and a creek slithering through her yard. It was a windy, warm March afternoon when I took my dying mother home. That night, I began my work. I was going to turn the house into a bunker a maid's death could not solve. I would keep my mother safe. I would find a way to keep her alive. The little red book was full of ideas. Running water was an obvious place to start. The creek behind the house was barely a trickle, but it could provide some coverage to the south side of the property. Salt was next, lining the doorways and the window frames, then in an unbroken circle around the entire house. This step was to be repeated daily. The red book stressed even multiple times per day. Even a moderate breeze played holy havoc with any salt poured outside, so it was always best to trace and retrace every few hours. Water and salt were common defenses against man's oldest enemy, and well known. The book offered another, less conventional advice. It took me nearly a week to finish carving the symbols and signs into the walls, the floors, even the trees on the property. Sometime around noon on the third day, on my back in the crawl space etching strange marks onto the underside of the floor, it struck me how ridiculous I was acting. There was no proof that any of this information in the little red book was anything other than the delusional ramblings of a bizarre woman I'd only met once or twice as a child. For all I knew, the runes meant to ward off death were actually a grocery store list written in Cantonese. Oh my god, Chinese representation, lei ho ma, lei ho. But I was desperate. Every time I saw my mother, she looked frailer, more fragile. So I continued carving, praying, and building layers upon layers of protection to keep death far away. Making my marks took me all over the property. It was a big yard, nearly 3 acres that blended gradually into the surrounding forest. I wasn't able to pinpoint the exact boundary where it cultivated met nature. The edges simply bled together, but I did my best to create a clean border with lines between the symbols. I'd always loved the wilderness here, the way you could wander a few hundred yards away from home and feel like you'd travel hundreds of years into the past to somewhere more primal. This was the perfect playground for a kid. Whether I was out exploring trails or trapping minnows or spending the summer building yet another treehouse, convinced this would be the final one. It never was. I was never satisfied. The house itself, though small, was more than enough room for my mother and I. Dad died when I was 7. I don't remember much about him, just how big he seemed, with a bonfire grin and arms that I thought could hold the whole world. My mom often said I took after my father. I could see it in the old pictures of him. He had the same eyes, green as moss in the summer, and the same fiery shock of red hair, enemy to every comb on the planet. The sicker mom got, the more often she called me by my father's name. I worried when she'd drift away like that, but a part of me was proud she'd mistake me for him. After all the symbols were carved, there were a few steps left in the book to deter death from visiting. There were dozens of charms, talismans in the bottom of the old box in the attic. I sat up there, combing through everything my grandmother left behind, referencing the red book, pushing the tiny charms into tidy piles. None of the idols were larger than my thumb. Some were iron, others were wood, some were heavy, others light. All of them were uncomfortable to look at or touch. The attic was drafty, but not nearly enough to explain the cold that was burrowed into me as I sorted the charms. I'm not particularly tall, but the attic felt like it was designed for dolls. Being so low I couldn't even walk bent over. I moved around on my knees, rough floorboards threatening splinters even through my jeans. I could not have taken the box downstairs where I could have more room, but the idea filled me with a deep unease. It seems better to leave the box up in the attic, only taking down objects as I needed them. Up there, at least, my grandmother's items, her legacy was quarantined. The Red Book was very specific about the distribution of the totems around the house and property. I walked carefully through my mom's backyard, boots plopping in and out of mud, compass in hand. It had rained nearly every day since I'd taken my mom home from the hospital. I knew it was almost certainly a coincidence, but I couldn't help wonder if the soft curtains of rain falling to the ground were for her. I placed charms in a compass rose with the house in the middle. The most disturbing objects were given places of honor on each cardinal direction. Water, salt, wards, charms, all placed carefully, intentionally. My grandmother's book promised that these would offer some degree of protection against the inevitability of death. The symbols would confuse it. The talisman distract it, and the water and salt make barriers to slow it down. But death might still find a crack to slip through. So the little Red Book recommended one final trick. There was a small candle at the bottom of the box, dirty white as stained paper. When I took the candle from its case, the smell made me gag. Have you ever walked past a portable toilet in the dog days of summer? When it's so hot, the blue plastic has started to warp and bubble. Imagine that smell distilled into a finger's worth of wax. That is disgusting. God, ew. I brought the candle downstairs, placed it on the dining room table, and set it as a light. A light? Set it alight. The wick caught immediately, the flame burning an unusual red-brown. No heat came off of the candle, and it actually seemed cooler the closer I moved my hand to the fire. Once the wax began to melt, the smell was 10 times worse than it was at the back of the attic. I choked down a greasy sickness crawling up my throat and quickly left the room, shutting the French doors as I went. That helped trap the odor, but I couldn't shake the sense of nausea. I went to check on my mother.
Do you remember the day you ran away?
My mom asked, sitting in her bed, lunch untouched on the nightstand behind her. I didn't think she had any weight to lose before she was nothing but bone and memory. Her skin was rice paper over a frame that seemed smaller every day. Her eyes, though, no matter how fragile the rest of her became, remained 2 little lanterns against the dark, blue and bright and alive. I didn't make it very far, I answered. I wasn't really running, only stretching my legs. My mom smiled.
You told me you were leaving for the circus. You wanted to either be a lion tamer or a strong man, or maybe a fire eater.
I think I wanted to be all of those combined. Young me was big on multitasking. My mother turned so she was looking out the window into the yard.
I was so scared when I found your note, the one saying you were leaving. My hands were shaking like you wouldn't believe when I called the sheriff, and then Mr. Jonas down the way. It felt like we were searching for you for half the night, even though it couldn't have been more than an hour before you were found, lost in the woods, wandering around and shivering. You hadn't even brought a jacket.
I sat next to my mom on the bed. Yeah, I didn't exactly plan ahead for my circus escape. I remember getting over the idea real quick, but I couldn't find my way back. I'm glad you found me.
I'm glad too,
my mother said. I noticed her wiping away a tear.
I'm so glad. That hour you were gone, Brian, that was the most afraid I've ever been. Afraid we wouldn't find you. Afraid you might be hurt, or worse. I could hardly breathe through the fear. Then suddenly you were there, and the relief nearly knocked me over. I think we stayed up together the rest of the night watching the stars. I wanted to make sure you could find the North Star in case you ever got lost again.
She turned back to me, reached out her thin hand and placed it over mine. There were still tears in her eyes, but she smiled her lighthouse smile, and for a moment I saw her just as she used to be, just as she was the night I ran away and my mom found me. I squeezed her hand. I was scared too. I was afraid I'd be stuck out there. What made you think of it? Well, I've been thinking a lot about dying lately and— Don't! I interrupted. Don't talk like that. You're not going anywhere. Not for a long time. It's okay, she said, squeezing my hand back. It's okay. I've known real fear, and what I'm feeling now, it's not like that. I'm scared, I guess, but I'm at peace with it. I had such a beautiful life. I'm so glad I got to meet you. To be your mom. I'm glad too, I whispered, voice breaking on the last word. But I won't let you go without a fight, I added silently in my mind.
Why is this story so depressing? Jesus Christ.
Something was trying to get to my mom. The strangeness began the day after I lit the candle. At first it was small blips, tiny wrongs that I chalked up to my imagination. Doors I knew I'd closed at night were open in the morning. Food began to rot and spoil within days of me bringing it into the house. Eventually, food would go bad almost immediately. Every few hours, the television in the living room would either turn off if it was running, or on if it was off. Clocks would stop overnight, always on 3:03 a.m. Shadows began sticking to the corners of rooms, independent of any light sources. The shadows were stubborn, and they would linger for as long as I would stare, then disappear when I blinked. I began hearing bumps and knocks at all hours, and sometimes, when I entered an empty room, I had a sharp, fleeting certainty that it was only just occupied. I avoided the dining room except to check in twice a day to see if the candle was still burning. The smell was vicious and would claw its way into your throat and nostrils the moment it was given a chance. I kept the door to the room shut and kept air fresheners running in the surrounding rooms 24/7. The funny thing was, the candle never went out. Never even seemed to shrink. I could see the wax melting, but day in and day out, the candle refused to change. Days marched into weeks, and the wrongness only grew deeper. My mom and I both lost sleep to vivid nightmares that we couldn't remember when we woke up. Only the echoes remained, but those were enough to leave my pulse sprinting until morning. I started sleeping on a chair in my mother's room. I did this to comfort her if she woke up confused during the night, but also because, if I'm honest, I'm too scared to sleep alone. I felt like a child running into his parents' room, convinced there was a monster under the bed. Thing is, maybe there was. By the third week, I couldn't sleep, doors closed. They would slam open the moment I left the room. A terrible scratching began inside the walls. I told my mom it might be squirrels or mice, but the sound was so insistent. Not like rodents milling around, more like a dog wanting in. I stopped leaving the house for supplies. Instead, I had what little food we ate delivered. I kept the curtains drawn. There was tapping on the glass every night. About a month after leaving the hospital, we were living like zombies. The dining room couldn't contain the smell of the candle anymore. The entire house was clogged with the scent. Tiny noises were graduated into full-on laughs and screams and whispers in the rooms around us. Something kicked the bathroom door so hard while I was taking a shower, and the hinges warped. I covered every mirror in the house. I started to see things in the corner and looking back at me, half-hidden faces, shapes that skittered away as soon as I turned around. Mom was drifting further and further away. She had long moments of confusion where she'd forgotten my name, forgotten where we were. Sometimes she'd think I was my dad. Other times, she'd just stare at the wall for hours, growing fainter and fainter each day like a Polaroid left in the sun. But she was alive. It was clear that we were under siege by something. My world shrank to only one room, and every trip to the bathroom or to answer the door for food felt like going over the trenches. The noises kept getting worse and worse, the shadows closer, the sense of movement around the house sharper. Every now and then I could feel hot breath on the back of my neck or walk through a cold patch hanging in the air. I stopped bothering redrawing the lines of salt around the house. I knew deep in my bones that as long as the sickly candle burned, death could not take my mom away. On the 33rd day after leaving the hospital, I woke with the start of a nightmare, only to find my mom's bed empty. She hadn't been able to walk the past week at all, So my first feeling was hope that she might be improving, at least a little. Then I noticed the odor we'd been living in for weeks was gone. "Mom!" I shouted, running in bare feet out of the room. I found her in the dining room, the door wide open. She was standing at the table, frail as a neglected scarecrow, bobbing back and forth. Her hands were hovering over the candle. The flame was out. "Why did you do that?" I whispered. "Mom? Mom, are you okay?" I padded into the room, the wooden floor freezing cold. My mother didn't react to my presence. She just continued rocking side to side. I realized she was still asleep. "Mom?" I gently shook her shoulder. "Wake up!" Her head snapped back and she nearly fell. I caught her on the way down. It felt like she weighed nothing at all. "What's going on?" she asked, looking around the dark room. "Where?" "You're okay," I told her. "You were sleepwalking." "I was having the most unusual dream," Mom mumbled. "There were so many stars and—" She began to shiver uncontrollably. The cold hit me a moment later. I let out a gasp. The house was chilly before, but the dining room was near Arctic. My breath bloomed into a thin cloud in front of my face. I became acutely aware of the complete silence filling the house. Then I heard scratching. It was coming all throughout the house. Deep tearing sounds at the walls around the dining room. Footsteps came immediately after, heavy and fast. Somewhere in the house, a window shattered. "Brian," my mom said, holding on to me. "Don't worry," I said. "Everything will be—" My voice deserted me as a massive shadow unfolded in the corner of the room. It was shaped like a man, but tall, so very tall, and it was fast. Before I could yell, the shadow was on us, pouring over my mother. In the space of a heartbeat, she was completely gone. "No," I whispered, clawing at the dissolved shadow where my mom used to be. "No, no, 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 no!" The shadow was disappearing like a puddle, sinking to the floor. There was a texture to it, oily and too slick to hold. The thought of my mother, the night she found me lost in the woods, the night I ran away. Her face filled my memory, her lighthouse smile. I remembered the relief I felt when she found me, the overwhelming love. I held on to that feeling, clutching it close. "You can't have her," I whispered. I closed my fist around the last thread of the shadow. There was a terrible sensation of pulling. It was like I'd caught a horse by the tail and was trying to shake me, but I held on. A sense of ripping and being dragged on. It was like a riptide with a mind of its own, but I held on. It could not shake me. The temperature was dropping every second, and I felt my vision growing dark. The last thought that ran through my head before I blacked out was a promise to myself that even if I died, my grip would hold. I wouldn't let my mother's life slip away. All sounds and light faded, narrowing to a pinprick, and then going black. I woke up under a field of stars. I was lying in soft grass, still wearing my pajama bottoms and an old t-shirt. It was cold, wherever I was, but comfortably so. So I stood up. There were trees all around me, tall and close, stitched together with shadows. Immediately to my right, there was a road that ran straight as far as I could see, blurring to the horizon. But the stars, they were like nothing I'd ever seen before. Bright ribbons of northern lights rippled above me in green and blue and purple. Stars lit the sky like millions of lanterns floating on a still ocean. The moon shone sharpest of all, a spotlight hanging above the tree line, so I thought I could stretch up and brush its face. "You are so persistent," said a voice from the forest behind me. I whipped around, but I couldn't see anything, or anyone. Then a dark spot began to clarify against the gloom. The silhouette separated itself and moved towards me. I recognized it instantly as a shadow from the dining room. As I moved closer, the thing grew and grew until it touched the sky and filled my vision. A deep dread sank into me, but I stood my ground. "Give me back my mom!" I shouted. The silhouette pulled away from the sky, and then it was standing in front of me, the shape and size of a tall man. But instead of a shadow, the thing had wrapped itself in stars. Miniature constellations drifted across its body, floating slowly like a time-lapse of a clear night sky. Burning brightest was the North Star, blue and warm. The space between the stars was absolutely black, not a shadow, but a complete absence of light. It was the most beautiful, terrifying thing I'd ever seen. "What are you?" I whispered.
You know.
It replied. "Give her back," I begged. "Please, give her back."
I can't. It's her time. Past her time. You delayed me. Delayed her.
I clenched my fists. She didn't get enough time. I didn't get enough time. It's not right. It's not fair.
Of course it's not fair, the starry thing said. But it is right. You each have your own time, and at the end of it, there's me. And there's a road, and we walk it together.
"Where to?" I asked. "Where are you taking her?"
I don't know. It's not for me to know. Only to know how to get there.
"Then I won't let you take her." I planted myself in the road. The world was still and solemn around us. The constellation drifted like clouds, and a soft breeze stirred the branches. The starry thing didn't respond for a moment.
Your mother was kind and caring. Wherever she goes, she'll have peace.
It promised. "But—" The creature raised its hand.
Did you ever stop to think that death isn't an enemy? Death simply is. It is the natural partner to life. It knows no prejudice or malice, has no designs or ambitions. Your mother spent so long suffering, felt so much pain. Instead of letting her rest, you took it upon yourself to draw her life beyond its course. You kept her alive, but at the cost of stretching her thin, prolonging her sickness, diluting her. Did you keep her alive for her benefit, or for yours?"
I couldn't answer.
"Stretching a life is unnatural, dangerous," it told me. "In the weeks you kept me away, you drew the attention of old things, hungry things, forces that would like nothing better than to swallow every memory of your mother, to tear and bite until there was nothing left but pain and fear and a perfect emptiness."
I shuddered, remembering the clawing sounds, the shattered window, the laughter from empty rooms. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Can they hurt her here? Is she safe?" The stars in the shadow burned brighter for a moment.
"Your mother won't walk the road alone. None of you do. I walk with you. Always. To the end."
"Can I see her?" I asked. "Please, let me say goodbye."
It considered for several seconds. "You are persistent."
And then the starry thing was gone. I was standing alone on an empty road. "Brian?" I turned to find my mother behind me on the road. She looked younger, healthier than I'd seen her in years. The frailty was gone, and my mother seemed exactly as I remembered her when she found me in the woods all those years ago. "Isn't this the most beautiful dream?" she asked, staring at the night sky. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "A beautiful dream. I love you, Mom. I love you so much. So very much." She smiled and touched my cheek. "I love you too. Don't cry. It's okay. I'll wake up any time now. I'll see you then." I nodded, wiping at tears. "Sure, yeah. I'll see you then." "What do you think is at the end of the road?" she asked. "Do you think I'll have time to find out before I wake up?" I looked out at the road, scanning the trees for any hungry shadows. "I don't know. I don't know where it goes, but promise me you'll be careful." My mom smiled wider. "Of course I'll be careful."
"And she won't walk alone,"
and said a familiar voice behind us both. I turned, expecting the starry thing, but the man standing at the road was completely normal. The light from the moon was enough that I could see he had moss-green eyes and bright shock of red hair. Such a beautiful dream, my mother said. The man came towards us and took my mother's hand. He and I looked so alike. I could see why my mother confused us when she was sick. Take care of her, I told the man. Please take care of her. Make sure she gets where she's going. There are things out there that want her to hurt her. It's my fault. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The man squeezed my shoulder.
She'll be safe, watched over. If the devil himself is waiting on the road ahead, he'll move, or he'll be moved.
I believed him. Thoughts raced through my head. There were so many things I wanted to say. Questions, a million ways to say goodbye. I wanted to stretch out the moment for as long as I could, but I realized I'd already delayed my mother enough. I love you, I told them both. Goodbye. I woke up back in my dining room, sitting at the table, the unlit candle in front of me. The house was quiet and still. There was no more scratching, no sound or sense of life at all. I walked through every room. The house was empty. I was alone. I've spent the past couple months working on the house, erasing the marks I'd made, fixing up the property. Some nights, I take long walks out into the forest. I'm far enough out in the country that on clear nights, it's like looking up at a sea of stars. I think about my parents the most during these walks. I grieve and remember them in my own way. And I wonder where their road went. If they're still traveling, or if they've reached their destination. I hope that their road takes them to strange and beautiful places. When I walk at night, I look up for the North Star to keep from getting lost. Maybe they do the same. When it's full, I also look up towards the moon. I wonder if my parents had a chance to visit, to search for hidden oceans. I like to think they did. That the moon has at least one Maria, the one I love most.
What the fuck, bro? What the hell? I was on our side of no sleep for a creepy, spooky time, not a tearjerker. What the fuck? What the fuck? Can you hear my nose? I got sniffly because I teared up reading that shit. God damn, that was emotional. Oh my god. Holy shit. That was a lot. That was a lot. What the hell? Okay, so this last story is called All Fours by The Cold People. And this is also a one-shot and fairly short. Shorter than those other ones anyways. I hope this is not another one that'll bring me on an emotional roller coaster like Maria, on the moon. I will never emotionally recover from that. Oh my god. Okay.
I was reading an Ask Reddit question about paranormal experiences and was reminded of something that happened to me as a child. Although this event occurred 2 decades ago, I find it sufficiently creepy to share with all of you. When I was 8 years old, I lived with my dad, stepmom, and 2 stepsisters, ages 7 and 6. So close to them. Anyways, in a very large house. My dad and stepmom went away for the weekend and left us with a babysitter. She slept in our parents' bedroom, and as kids, had a blanket fort to camp out in the living room. In the middle of the night, I heard a weird sound, something scraping around on the wood floors in the hall. Our house had no carpet except in the bedrooms. All of the halls and common areas had wood floors. We had 2 dogs at the time, a golden retriever and a chocolate Labrador, so when they ran around, they made a hell of a lot of noise. But this was not one of their familiar sounds. It was too slow and purposeful. Something else was trudging around inside my house. I imagined some horrific creature with rotting skin and flimsy little legs lurching up and down the halls of our home, poking its head in and out of rooms, searching for a child to snatch and whisk away into the night. My stepsisters slept through the noise. I listened for a long time, then finally got the courage to go investigate. I climbed out the blanket fortress and grabbed the flashlight off the bar counter. I walked around the ground floor of the house, looking for the source of the scraping sound. The ground floor of our house was comprised of 4 long hallways that made a square. The kitchen and the living room were at one end, and at the other, there was that stupid room with all the nice furniture that no one was allowed to actually sit in. It's a rich people thing from my parents' generation. As I reached the off-limits living room, I saw something move past the piano at the far side of the room. It moved into the adjacent hallway. The scraping sounds resumed. I hurried over, flashlight in hand, trying not to trip over anything. As I rounded the corner into the hall, I saw our golden retriever, Bear, walking through the darkness, on his hind legs. You know how sometimes when a dog jumps at you, you grab him by the front paws and you kind of help him stand? It's like someone was doing that with our dog, but there was no one there. I watched Bear stagger 4 or 5 steps, his back facing me. When he noticed my light, he fell to all fours and wagged his tail, then resumed, walking like a dog normally walks. He trotted away up the stairs to the 2nd floor like nothing strange was going on. The weird thing was, when I was laying in the blanket fortress earlier, I listened to that scraping sound for a good 5 to 10 minutes before deciding to investigate. The dog was walking around in the dark for that long on his hind legs, in slow circles around the house. To this day, I never figured out why. He never did before, and never did it again after that night. But he apparently freaked out the babysitter too. The next morning, she told me he pushed the door open to my parents' bedroom, went over to the bed, and started making vocalizations that sounded like he was trying to make human speech. He did this for several minutes before she locked him out of the room, and looked pretty rattled the next day when we talked. It's probably not a coincidence that, as an adult, I'm a cat person.
I don't get it. I'm gonna be real, I don't get it. I don't understand why that's scary. I'm trying to read the Reddit comments right now. Someone said, it's been 2 months, but this is still fucking me up. It's just a dog walking on its hind legs. Why is it so scary? Hi, this is Editing Kaifu from the future. I get it now. I read too many fictional stories. I did not comprehend that this was in fact a real story that is quite scary, yes. Anyways, that marks the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know I said this was gonna be a short video, but look at me. Ha ha ha, I'm a liar. Oh man. But if you enjoyed that the reading of these stories, please feel free to let me know if you want more of this kind of stuff, and I'll do more. If you like my voice or anything, feel free to subscribe. Like the video, comment. I'll have hopefully an ASMR video out next week, like a proper ASMR video out next week. Anyways, I don't know what else to yap about. My brain's kind of fried. I'm kind of going through it, man. The Maria story is still sticking with me, man. That shit was crazy. That was really well written. Oh my god. Anyways, feel free to check out a video YouTube recommends to you on this left side, and check out a video that I recommend to you on this right side. Okay, that's it. Happy Halloween! Bye!